Hello, dear friend. Here for a bit of a pick-me-up and maybe a snack, eh? Well, let me get started on that for you, but as you wait, let me tell you about an amazing local event. I don't know if you've heard of Mogstock before, but get this, it's a festival in Gridania. This is their 6th year operating it. I want you to imagine 3 days full of musicians, dancers, artists, cafes, restaurants, all in a small little housing area in Gridania. Lots of things to do no matter if you're coming early in the morning, late afternoon, or even in the middle of the night. I hear they even set up hotels for people to camp out in. I haven't used one, but I hear they're available. Now, if you remember my previous guests here at the cafe, Solara and her dance troupe, Clockwork Angels, they'll even be performing there this year. Since I thought it might be something you'd be interested in, I've asked one of the founders of the event, Braely, to come by and talk about it. I also plan to put up flyers over the next week here at the cafe. She should be here shortly, and I'm sure you'll want to hear what she has to say. And just like that, Braely, welcome to Coffee and Carbuncles.
Thank you so much. I'm super happy to be here. Good
I
evening,
am
Nobu.
happy that you are here.
Well, we're excited. We're excited. We've got our 6th year of Mogstock just around the corner, and it's sprint to the finish line right now time.
And that's something that I was thinking about earlier today. I'm like, the Mogstock staff is probably super busy, and here we are a week out from the event, and you're taking time to be here and do this with me, and I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. I mean, it definitely is, like I said, it's crunch time, and we're all in it right now. But at the same time, getting word out because it is probably one of the more novel and unique events that Um, I say that with, obviously some amount of bias, but at the same time, we've worked really hard to make it a very encompassing event that everybody can enjoy.
And in part two of this interview, we are going to talk all about that. Brayley and I just got done talking about how this is an interview I've been wanting to do since season 2 of the podcast, but it felt like things kept coming up. Or, for instance, one of the more difficult parts about Coffee and Carbuncles from a scheduling production standpoint is when there is an annual event, at what point do I have someone on to talk about it? Because if I do it right after the event, then it's going, well, in a year, you can come check it out. But if I do it too soon before an event, my worry is that people then forget about it. So while I feel that this interview being a week before Mogstock is cutting it a little close, at the same time, I know that it will be fresh in people's minds, especially given that next weekend, due to EU FanFest, is already a weekend that is very much in the minds of the 14 community.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's one of those we often times are kind of competing against different events, but at the same time, because there is a lot of hype around this time, it's a great time for it.
I think it's really neat because it allows for next weekend to be just that much more special. People can come and go from Mogstock. At the same time, they'll be watching most likely the keynote.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that together next weekend will hopefully be a very big weekend for both the NA and EU sides of the 14 community.
Hmm.
But I feel like I'm getting very much ahead of myself.
It's fine.
Let's go back to how I usually start this interview. Brayley, where are you joining us from today?
I am well, I live in the Pacific Northwest. I'm a Portland girl, so, or lady, whatever you want to say. and I'm joining you during my summer break.
Summer break. So, student, teacher, professor?
I'm a teacher. I'm a middle school teacher. I teach English language arts.
Very nice. As someone who used to do English as a second language, I have an idea what that's like.
Yay, a fellow teacher. Cool.
Now, as we settle in for this interview, I have a nice cup of iced Blue Mountain coffee from Taiwan, which I'm very excited
Ooh.
about. It tastes very smooth. What are you drinking for the interview?
Like you, I am drinking coffee. For me, it is a Colombian dark roast with a splash of cream and just a dash of sugar. I don't like it real sweet, just a little bit. And yeah, I'm pretty much living on caffeine right now. I don't do the energy drinks, but I definitely do caffeine.
And is that just part of teacher life, or you said living on caffeine? Is that due to? I think we can call it con crunch. Mogstock is pretty much a convention in and of itself, I'd say.
It really is. It really is. I think that people have come to expect it every year. Definitely, we get a lot of people that are just like, when we post signups, people are like, when are you posting signups? When does that start? Which was my first indicator that, like, actually, hey, we actually did a thing and people really liked it, and we're gonna do it again. Oh my goodness. So,
And then suddenly, before you know it, it's year six.
right, right. So year six is crazy. What a journey.
I bet. Before we talk about Mogstock, I want to know a bit more about you as a person.
Sure.
The the Braely outside of 14, let's say.
Hmm.
So we've obviously discussed that you're a teacher. Is there
Hmm.
anything else you want people to know about your hobbies or your passions or things you enjoy outside of rushing around preparing for Mogstock?
Well, I think like most uh Final Fantasy players, I am really into fantasy reading and writing and world building, as it were, within the genre. And for me, that was kind of like the link, I guess you would say, is that my writing, my passion for writing, is what got me into MMOs. And so I'm an avid reader, an avid writer. I love all period pieces. I love dark fantasy. I love light fantasy, comedic fantasy, but pretty much the fantasy genre within reading and writing. But I like all genres. And what else is there? I'm really big into research. I am in fact creating my own SaaS right now for doing online research for OSINT. Very nerdy, but it's a big passion of mine as well. And also I've got ADHD, but I look at it as features, not flaws. I am really a creative type, so I channel all of my extra energy into whatever passion projects I've got going, and sometimes three. So is that what you were
As
hoping
we
for?
talked about earlier, I know nothing about passion projects, so
Yeah, I can't imagine you would, with this podcast that's several years old itself. So getting to interview all sorts of cool people from Final Fantasy. I think it's amazing. When you contacted me, I was super excited.
I'm trying. Dear community members, you're all Pokemon. Prepare to be caught.
Well, it's amazing. It's amazing. I've actually heard the podcast before, and when I went to it, I was like, oh wow, what a neat experience. So consider glad it's happy to be here.
You just cut out quite a bit.
Oh, I said consider me flattered and super happy to be here.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Out of curiosity, what was your first encounter with the Final Fantasy franchise?
Resistance. I was a World of Warcraft player before Final Fantasy, and there was like BFA had come out, and a lot of people were starting to do the migration in, I want to say, the late, like, teens, as it were. I'm not sure how you call it, like the 2017, 2018 time. And we were well established over on WoW. And I had a whole guild going there with my co-lead, Led, and we had a lot of people that were talking about how cool Final Fantasy was. So I reluctantly went over. I was like, okay, we can take some little breaks and just go do silly, because I thought it was kind of more silly than WoW, because I mean, WoW is a little bit darker, but the more I got into it, the more I fell in love with it, and I just loved how encompassing the world was, and that there was so much for everyone. And I just, as somebody who, like I said, I've got ADHD, but like I said, I consider it features, not flaws. And whenever there's something like creative for me to rush into, I am one of those people that will have to explore it and learn everything I can about it before I'm satisfied. So what I found with Final Fantasy is that it was a world where all of that was possible. And I never seemed to, like, every time I would learn one thing, it wasn't like, okay, and now I'm done and there's that. Then there was this whole new thing to learn, and that went from role play to housing to crafting to just all of the different things, like the so many different ways that you can engage with the Final Fantasy genre and Final Fantasy 14.
And has that led you to try other Final Fantasy games?
I've played through a couple of the different Final Fantasy games before, and my partner in real life was a big fan of the Final Fantasy franchise early on. So I was very familiar with it to begin with, but I didn't really understand how it had been like made into an MMO. Again, I really had in my mind as and it is a cutesy game in some ways, but I thought at first that that was really all there was to it. I thought it was just going to be chocobos and Moogles all around it. And then here I am now doing a Moogle festival. What do you know? But at the same time, I think it took a little bit for me to understand that it's just part of the world building.
For me, one of the things that is makes Final Fantasy 14 really fascinating is that not only is it its own world with obviously its own history, its own lore, but
Hmm.
due to the way the game is set up, it's also a mixture of like 15 other games and their history and their lore. And as it takes bits and pieces and, puts them together into what we know as 14. And
Absolutely.
so I agree that it always feels like there's more lore to dive into because even if you understand something that exists in 14 from 14's lore perspective, you can
Hmm.
then go deeper and find it and what it represented and how it was used in the game it's originally from.
Right. Yeah, and that's absolutely a factor in my experience with fantasy. What I noticed early on is that when they do their lore writing and lore building too, what struck me early on is that it felt like the developers themselves were fans. Like that they understood the experience of being a. You've got like the Wedge and Big story and like all of these little references that are actually other franchises or other mythos in different worlds that they have pulled in and kind of given like a little wink and nod to. And whenever I discover those, I'm like, oh, that's that. That's so cool. Or it causes me to laugh and giggle a little bit. And I've certainly embraced that mindset within building my own community with my co-lead. We actually pull from Final Fantasy Tactics for our own role play experience. We run a place called the Covenstead, which is the Year and Witches community, and it's we both built off of the Final Fantasy Tactics lore that was already set in the game because there's this quest line called the Witch of the Fens, and if you look, D&D has the Witch of the Fens, and then there's all sorts of mythos about the Witch of the Fens. So we actually used all of that knowledge to kind of fill in what wasn't there, the little bits that because it's, obviously just a quest line, so you don't get everything. But then when you start going out and researching it, you discover it's this big, rich lore in and of itself. And I feel like Final Fantasy is really good for that. That wink and nod, like I said, where it acknowledges that fans in and of themselves are creatives. And I think that everybody that steps foot into the world of Final Fantasy is in some way a little bit creative themselves.
I think that's a really good way to put it. Yeah. Do you have a particular favorite Final Fantasy outside of 14 then? Like, which Final Fantasy
Tactics.
games have you played?
Tactics would be the big one that I've experienced. And then I can't remember which one it was that I played through. It was one of the very first ones. And this was years ago. But I would say that, Final Fantasy 14 is the one that I know the most. And then I played Tactics to be able to, honestly, to play the Witch of the Fens storyline. And I haven't finished all the way through it, and that was a while ago. But mostly I've done research on it and watched playthroughs. And like I said, I did have the experience of being like an armchair quarterback to my partner in real life playing the game, or the different games.
Do you see yourself playing Final Fantasy 12 since it's also set in Ivalice?
I would imagine I could. I would probably need to look more into it. And well, the thing is that really, I'm such a community-driven person that I see myself following my community, and listening to my community and being responsive to that. Like if there was like this decision, is it an MMO? I don't even know.
Final Fantasy 12 is not. It's a single player game.
Hmm.
It's set, I think it's like several hundred years before Final Fantasy Tactics, but still set in the
Hmm.
same world. And it has a very unique combat system. It in some ways it kind of plays like an old MMO,
Hmm.
but also it has a very politics driven storyline and is pretty interesting.
Ooh,
I recommend
yeah.
checking it out
Well, that
sometime.
definitely. Yeah, actually, I might like, given that you're saying that, I really love the I guess for me, stories that are more cerebral are the ones that are more compelling. So if it's got that, then I'm definitely somebody that could be hooked easily that way.
I'd for sure say look into it. Once you're not busy running around getting ready for Mogstock, of course.
So you've played it yourself?
Yeah,
Are you really big into the Final Fantasy franchise?
I am.
Like all of them? Which is your favorite?
Oh man. You know, that is a tough question. If I had to pick a favorite Final Fantasy, ooh, I have three that I usually kind of alternate between in terms of like my quote unquote favorite. Final Fantasy 5, Final Fantasy 6, and the game World of Final Fantasy.
Oh, okay. And was it that like I'm sorry, this is your interview. I'm like all like I'm just curious to know for you, like what is it that like gets you all like what are the most interesting elements? I feel like I need to pick your brain because like these are all really good bits.
So Final Fantasy 5 has a more lighthearted story compared to other games, and it's just about going on an adventure, and it's actually where we see a really good example, and I think the best early example of Final Fantasy's job system, where you can switch between different classes. As you use each class, you level up and unlock new abilities. It's what Phantom or Occult Crescent in 14 is based on. And
Ooh.
I just really like it. It's a very fun experience. It's actually the job system in Final Fantasy Tactics is an evolved version of the job system from Final Fantasy V, which I
Oh,
believe
okay.
is an evolved version of the job system from Final Fantasy III. So you kind of just see it throughout those three games. You see them making this multi class job system, fleshing it out, and in some ways, it's what ends up becoming the job system of Final Fantasy XIV.
The whole evolution of it.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
On the exact opposite side of the spectrum, Final Fantasy VI is very dark. It has a very mature plot, but that's also what I really like about it is that
Hmm.
it covers very serious, dark topics, but it handles them, in my opinion, quite well.
So it's sensitive when it's like approaching things that people are going to find cerebrally interesting, but at the same time, it's not going to be triggering, is what you're saying, because there are some games that will trigger you.
I feel like that really kind of just depends on the individual, but in general, I think that Final Fantasy VI approaches more mature storytelling in a very good and serious way. So
That's cool. That's really cool. I'd love to pick your brain about that more. Not now, obviously, like whenever I meet people that have like that are basically kind of mini encyclopedias themselves, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna fixate on you just because like I've got all these questions. Do you have answers?
you can feel free to message me about other Final Fantasy games anytime. The only ones I don't know a lot about are Final Fantasy 2 and Final Fantasy 4. So,
It's it's super funny. Actually, I should ask you this question because one of the things that for obviously I'm a role player in Final Fantasy. That's like one of my big passions is the writing my own story within the world itself and writing it. I look at it as, shared storytelling or collaborative storytelling. Um, that the role play experience that's what it is. And one of the story arcs that we're doing has like kind of involved the work that was happening at St. Coinage, the Brotherhood of St. Coinage, like out in, I need more coffee. Uh, you know what I'm talking about, the into Stormblood, like basically,
right.
and into Shadowbringers, when the Scions of the Seventh Dawn shifted gears out to Revenant's Toll and basically opened the portal to get Memphilia back. Basically, the whole how do you the opening of portals and all of that. We've been exploring kind of the whole pixie element of it, and having pranksters and tricksters coming through in our coven's time. So that's like a big passion for me right now is understanding that. And I got into this big discussion last night about, well, what kind of fae actually would exist in Final Fantasy? And somebody brought up that there is actually one of the Final Fantasy storylines that has Seelie and Unseelie fae. Are you familiar with that?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
So I guess my search continues.
Usually Fae related stuff isn't something that I take a lot of notice of, to be honest. It's in terms of like my fantasy interests and such, it's not really that far up there.
What are your big interests?
Um, Never really thought about it. I don't know how to answer that.
That's fine. I do think a lot about those sorts of things. Like for me is like, well, what kind of gets you all excited to think about and kind of world build within? Where could you see writing a story within? And I think that that's probably the English teacher in me is that like, feeling excitement about the genre that you are in and kind of finding that part of it that really sings to you, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I can definitely see how being an English teacher would be a part of that. I mean, I can tell that there is a very large interest in literature when it comes to you.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I am a consumer big time when it comes to all sorts of literature and prose and different writing styles. I think that I'm very open to all types because I think that essentially it's allowing people to explore and learn to love not just reading but also writing themselves and to just really dive in, I guess you'd say, to the whole experience of fantasy writing.
I suppose if I had to to describe the type of fantasy I like a lot of historical fiction. I like stuff that the world feels very realistic and very grounded. And I like stuff that has some supernatural elements or some magical elements, but isn't quite high fantasy. Like, I'm not a very big Lord of the Rings fan. I like
Mm-hmm.
where things like supernatural stuff and magical elements are clearly present, but they don't completely define the setting, and they aren't necessarily the primary focus of the setting.
Absolutely. So a mesh of the two, like not the high fantasy, but kind of, I think for a while, I mean, you can kind of almost call it like urban fantasy, where you've got things like the
I do
Dresden
like urban
Files,
fantasy quite a
or
bit.
yeah, me too. Me too. Actually, I used to be a role play partner with the writer of the Dresden Files.
Really?
Yep. Yep. He was
Interesting.
one of my role play partners way, way, way long ago. But I was big into Vampire, the Masquerade role play. And yeah, Jim Butcher and I go way, way back. I'm not gonna like date myself, but I am definitely one of those, middle-ager role players. So.
That's interesting because when I was younger, I actually played Vampire quite a bit.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Did you
I
ever do
think
like
this is the
mushing or
first time
nutting?
I've ever talked about it, but yeah. What?
What
Sorry?
a disappointment! What a disappointment that the Vampire the Masquerade MMO never happened. I was so stoked and looking forward to that. I was like, it's it. That's it. There's my MMO. It's coming for me. And then all of a sudden, poof, it just went away. It was just such a tease.
I uh, Vampire has I have fond memories of playing it.
What vampire like which of the different vampire clans did you most kind of relate with or enjoy playing?
I really enjoy playing a Setite.
That's I ooh, oh wow, Sabat. Can you guess with me?
Nope.
Malkavian. I was a total Malkavian.
Nice.
Yeah,
No,
I go way back. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh gosh. Vampire is one of those things where I don't feel like I have as much free time to play it or enjoy it as I did like back in college, for instance. So I don't really have much time for like tabletop role playing these days,
Right.
but I have fond memories of it.
Yeah, me too. Like it's funny because you always know when you like there are those people where it gets brought up and then it's just like you're either somebody that's like yes or no completely. Like there are people that are like I have no idea what you're talking about, but then the moment it's one of those games I think that those that became passionate about it are either like no I was a werewolf person, no I was a mage person, I was this. You meet very very few changeling people. But what I will say is that you've got like vampire people who are like, oh, I was totally a Toreador, I was totally a Lasombra, I was totally this. And then you've got, your werewolf people know when to go and all this like it. And so I find that genre to be probably that was my gateway drug of getting into um believe it or not, I was like a sorority girl back in college. And I ended up I had a knack for working with computers and I needed a part-time job and I ended up taking on a job at a computer lab and I got into gaming through that because the guys that I was working with at the computer lab were like, "Oh yeah, yeah, this is what we do like when we're waiting for people." So they like got me playing and I was like, "This is the coolest thing ever. How could I not have known about this?" And I was just like hooked from then on out.
Origin stories always fascinate me because how people come to various games is is always interesting because I feel like it's very unique from person to person.
Mhm.
It's one of the reasons that at the start of these interviews, I like to ask people how they came to 14 and Final Fantasy as a
Mhm.
whole, because you have some people who they've played Final Fantasy since they were little kids. And so they're like, of
Right.
course I played 14. But you also have people who 14 is their very first Final Fantasy. They've either never been aware of the franchise until 14, or they were aware of it but just didn't play it. And
Mhm.
it's interesting how we all take these different paths to end up as part of the community.
Right. Well, and I think that that's true for I think that gamers in general, like, and Final Fantasy is one of those games, like I said, that it's so robust in terms of like offering so many different things for so many different types of gamers. You've got the lore, you've got the different mechanics. I mean, the one thing that I will say, and sorry, Spurdy Mates, like don't smite me, Yoshi P. But like the only thing that I would say that I would complain about with Final Fantasy is the PvP, because I really enjoyed PvP on WoW. But other than that, I think it's just always been a stellar game. Even when they kind of stumble a little bit on storyline, it just I never get the sense that okay, that's over, like the storyline's just gone and they jumped the shark. It always feels like there's like a responsiveness. Like I said, I think that it goes back to that whole idea of there's a real vibe to them that they are fans themselves. Like you look at Yoshi and he talks about being a fan, or like they just have that kind of feeling that they get it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I on one hand, I feel like it's sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to say this.
It's okay.
You do get the sense that they have been Final Fantasy fans for several years, and I'm sure that's also what allows them to figure out when and where and how to put all of these references to past games into 14. At the same time, I imagine it must be difficult at times because you have all of these games and all of this lore and all these references, but you also have to figure out, well, how do we wink and nod to this, this, and this, but still make it make sense for our own world and allow Final Fantasy XIV to be its own thing? And I think that
Absolutely.
they've done a pretty solid job of that. I imagine at times it must be kind of difficult.
For sure. And I wonder, it makes me wonder, is it like just moments of inspiration for them where like this is kind of like that, oh, you know what, we should name them Biggs and Wedge, like that kind of a thing. Or, oh, we should name it the Witch of the Fens. Like you could just imagine the writers when they're doing this, like that they maybe had some experience that kind of catapulted the creative juice for, oh, we're gonna incorporate that, right? That's my feeling on it. It feels very organic and like somebody just had an idea because they were like in it, right? They just kind of like and as a creative, or at least that's how I think. Like when I'm doing housing design, when I'm doing, like any kind of writing a web page or doing creative story, like when things are flowing and then all of a sudden you get that little epiphany idea, that's what it feels like to me with a lot of the little sparks in Final Fantasy, is that it feels very organic and natural. And that's like, and kudos to them for being able to consistently, bring that level. I don't think that it always hits, but it always feels very natural nonetheless. It doesn't feel forced. The same way that I would say if you're at all familiar with the WoW franchise, like I was just devastated with the whole BFA Sylvanas thing. Like, I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Like killing the world tree and, making people suffer. It's like, no, that's not the motivation. You just took this like super deep character and went totally, out of in another direction with it. And that I haven't felt Final Fantasy doing the same thing. Even though I know some people had some qualms with like this last expansion. I still think that the storytelling is definitely, like it's definitely within the world, and you still get this like kind of consistent and steady pace of Final Fantasy writing.
I agree. Back on the topic of Final Fantasy XIV and Mogstock. Obviously, we'll get into it more in part two of the interview, but I'm curious, with Mogstock being this big 3-day festival in 14, do you attend a lot of music festivals in real life, or have you?
Yeah, I attend a lot of concerts. I I'm going to see actually Sarah McLachlan in a couple of weeks, like right after Mogstock. And yeah, I would say that I attend a lot of concerts, sometimes festivals, sometimes not. I've attended a lot of conventions in the past. I haven't done as many conventions, but the people around me, my family, all are big convention goers, whether it be cosplay or gaming or whatnot. Um, and my partner has written like independent role play games. He actually is part of a group that, if you've ever heard of Classroom Deathmatch or The Land of Yeld, and
Okay. So is music a big part of Final Fantasy XIV for you?
absolutely, absolutely, music is kind of like, I was so absolutely gobsmacked when I first experienced barding in the game. I was just like, this is unbelievable. And there's a streamer, I don't know if you're familiar with DJ Tromad, but Tromad was in my FC that we ran, and Tromad was like wanting to start this little bar called the Blue Makote, and I built for Tromad the first iteration of the Blue Makote, and all of these bards started going in, and we would go and sit there and role play, and I was just like, how are they doing that? Oh my goodness, that is so crazy. And that was my first experience of meeting Clade, in fact. Clade got up and was playing all of these songs that I recognized, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're playing, XYZ." And Clayton and I started laughing about it, and I would do this like, name that song, because Clay's like, "You are so good at this. Like, how do you know all these songs?" And I'm like, "We've clearly got the same kind of music taste, brother, because like every single song you're playing is like just hitting it for me." And I was very intimidated by it at first. I was like, this feels very intimidating to me, and I don't think I can do it myself. But eventually, I opened up my own venue after designing everybody else's. And actually, I didn't open it up. Ledwin and I did, who is also one of the founders of Mogstock. And we opened up the Elysian Springs. And at first, it was Clade coming in. Clade would be like, he'd come in and he would bard for us. And people would sit there and have this, because our spot is not it's not a hookup spot. It's more like a tavern where you're sitting and socializing and role playing with friends, right? And we had this music, he'd be sitting there playing the music. It was just a great vibe, right? And that was kind of the initial springboard where we were getting to know each other. And Clay was like, well, Vian, who runs the Crystal Music Academy, was like, well, now that I've seen all these, like Tromat, I want to say, got Vi in contact with us, and we ended up designing the Crystal Music Academy, which has this probably one of the best backdrops that we've ever done. We did this piano keyboard as the backdrop for where the bards play. I don't know if you've ever been there.
I'm afraid I haven't.
I think it's still up. You should go check it out sometime. But yeah, it was just, at first I was just like being a fangirl myself of these bards, like, because I really was just so intimidated by it. And then eventually, I want to say it was Vi that was like, you can do this, come on, Kim, you have got this, just let's try it. And I couldn't do what Vi does, because Vi actually does like keyboarding, like plays on the keyboard, and I am a poser, like I import the midis and and play that way. But then we learned, because we wanted to do ensembles, um And I have got a group of best friends that like they are my ride or dies, and we created the Fens or the ensemble, and we created our own ensemble, and then by the second Mogstock, or no, maybe the first, I don't know, it was the second or the first, I can't remember. No, it was the first, yeah. We ended up playing at Mogstock as well.
Hmm,
So I do have
neat.
a band. We're not playing this year. This will be our first year of not playing. But we've got too many ensembles, and it's like I've had my turn up there, and really we're just a house band. Like we'll play at some like different things, but usually it's just because people want to see a cute bum girl band. Like we play a lot of like kind of Celtic, mystical, like, and then with a little bit of like bleed in of Fleetwood Mac and stuff like that. But yeah, so like I am definitely into the music scene, but not to the same extent. I mean, role play is my jam, right? So music is just an enhancement to that, and I'm just a real fan and admirer of those that are bringing music and kind of looking at different genres and different ways to present music genres within the game with the tools that we've been given. So
And that's something that in my last interview, I had a discussion with the leader of Clockwork Angels about is it's really interesting to see all the different things you can do in the game in terms of music and combining emotes, and it makes band performances a lot more than just standing there while your character plucks at a string. They can be very dynamic.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, there's so many different ways that you can express creativity within it. Um, and it's super cool. Like I said, that was one of the other when I was talking about the different ways that like when you'd find one thing to learn, you'd learn it all, and it wasn't like it would just stop at that point. There was always something new. And barding was definitely a something new for me, and then ensembles and then macro dancing. Like there's so many different ways that you can express yourself creatively in Final Fantasy, or like communities that you can join. It's just the world is truly your oyster. And if you're a gaming enthusiast, as it were, looking for more than just the raid, I guess.
And I think that that is the perfect note to end part one of this interview on. And in part two, we're going to talk about a great place to express yourself, Mogstock.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
So, Brayley and I will be back after a short break, and we will talk all about Mogstock 2026. See you then.
Yay!
All right, we are back for part two of the interview. As best I know, Brayley is still here.
I am here.
So our break is over, and I think the best thing we can do is just dive right in. We're here to talk about the 3-day in game event known as Mogstock. So, as someone who is part of not only the founding of Mogstock, but someone who is working very hard to make it happen this year, Braely, how would you describe Mogstock to someone who's never attended before, maybe hasn't heard of it until today? How would you sell Mogstock to them?
A collision of all things wonderful in Final Fantasy, all of the things that are creative and that people who are doing these kinds of really interesting and unique um, things within the Final Fantasy environment, they're able to show off their things, show off what it is that they do on so many different levels, from music to role play to dancing to artwork to design. It is like falling into a legitimate 3-day summer festival in the quaintest of cutest little, like towns that like if you've ever had one of those festivals that you just look forward to all year in real life, it's like that.
That actually sounds really cozy, and I like it. Would you describe Mogstock as cozy?
Oh, absolutely. Everything I do is like cozy. It's funny that every time I talk to people, cozy is always one of those words that comes up, but even the designs are cozy. They're cute, they're warm, they're inviting, and like for me that is a kind of a flagship signal of welcoming. And that's what we want people to come to this festival and just it's just all smiles. That's what we want. We want people to enjoy it, and we want them to kind of have like a mini experience of Final Fantasy within the festival itself. Of like, oh, when I'm done listening to a band, I can go and play a game or get some art done, or go and role play having a meal and meeting these people that like do these different venues. Or I can go and watch dancers that have like worked so hard on all of these dances. Like it truly is unique in that regard.
And that's something that I wanted to talk about and also kind of highlight in this interview. When someone hears the name Mogstock, especially if you're from North America, Woodstock probably comes to mind, just off the top of my head.
You think that that's a little bit on purpose, actually. And that was Clayton and Bayen were like, I'll get into that, but that was part of the origin story of Mogstock. So
But one of the things that I find really interesting about Mogstock is even though in a lot of ways it's sold as a music festival and it invokes music festivals. I noticed you guys have bands, you have DJs, which, not too out of the ordinary for a big music event like this, but I also noticed you have dancers, you have artists. Tell me about the decision to include other people and sort of expand beyond what we would think about when we imagine a typical music festival.
absolutely. So that comes from an evening that was kind of a consistent or a persistent evening that we were having shortly after COVID lockdowns started happening. Myself and other creatives, I at the time was just a pretty well-known housing designer. I wasn't, and I was really heavily into the role play world, and I was, like I said in the earlier part of the interview, a big fan of bards and doing a lot of housing work for barding groups. Like, I would go in and we did the Crystal Music Academy, and we did Clade's little venue that he had, and other venues like that. And we just got to know each other as friends. And there was one night that we were sitting in RSC in Ward 22, and I was kind of reminiscing. Led and I were reminiscing about how we used to run a festival, and Clayton and Bayan were like, "Well, we've talked about wanting to do like a music thing that would be really cool, like like just do like a Woodstock, but in Final Fantasy." And I was like, "Well, you've got to think bigger than that. Like, if you're gonna do it, you've got to do it. You've got to like how you're gonna make it like hit the map is if you like make it a real festival. Like walking in feels like you're actually at a festival. You're not just going to watch bards play. You are immersing yourself in the world of a festival.
So, if I understand that, then bringing in non-bard, non-DJ performers and acts, venues, etc. This wasn't like it started out as a music festival and then you steadily brought these people in over the years. This was by design from year one.
Absolutely, it was baked into the cake. Tromed, like Tiny Club is what we called it, and we're not supposed to talk about Tiny Club. That's the big joke about it. Was what we would do after we were all done doing our duties, as it were, building and dancing or barding and whatnot. And we would just go and sit, and Clade would play music and we would play Name That Tune, or Tromad would dance and show us the macro dances, or Vi would play, or we'd just sit and role play, or we'd just sit and chatter. And it was all of these things that we were having so much fun just kind of all being stuck doing. And we were like thinking, well, there's all these music festivals that are getting canceled this summer. What if we were to really, really all throw in and make this like the coolest thing ever? And we had no pretensions about like whether it would be well received. We just knew that we wanted to do it. And when we did it, like people were like, oh my gosh, this is just the coolest thing ever. And over the years, more people got involved, and it just grew from there. But it really did have all of the elements at the very, very start. Ledwin and I had been instrumental in shaping a festival on World of Warcraft in the role play community called the Revelry, and that was how I stepped into the role as the organizer of the venues and role play side of things. And Clayton Vi both stepped into the role of organizing the bards, and we owned like multiple properties in Ward 22. So we were like, we'll just use those and we'll talk to our neighbors. And our neighbors were super happy to help out. And then Tromad, of course, brought in the DJs and the macro dancers because that's what Tromad is well known for. But Tromad isn't with us this year. Tromad is not so much on World of Warcraft, or not World on Final Fantasy anymore. But yeah, that was kind of the origins of it. Is just a group of friends that were trying to find ways to make our communities not be sad when we all got locked down in COVID.
And so year one happens, and it sounds like it goes well. And when does what seems like a one-off idea start to morph into we definitely need a year two? Was that because like the staff and the performers enjoyed it that much, or was it more a response from the community going, hey, are we doing this next year?
It was the community. They insisted. They were like, "Well, so when's next year?" And we were like, "Next year?" And we were like all looking at it like, "Oh my goodness, like it looks like we're doing this again." And so we did next year, and then we just kept going, and then it became just a thing. Like, okay, Mogstock's the thing.
I love that. I genuinely love that because I've seen that happen with conventions. For instance, I like to attend Gateway Fate in St. Louis. This will be the third year for it. And I remember we had year one of Gateway Fate, and then literally after year one, I know myself, a lot of other attendees, especially some content creators, were like, cool, so we're all going to meet up again next year, right? And it's interesting how these sort of one-off ideas become so fun that people really insist to do it again. And especially when it comes to like annual gatherings, because I feel like when you have a a 3-day weekend, and I'm sure those of you that go to conventions, you'll know this feeling. Having it only once a year, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It just feels like, hey, 12 months from now, it's going to be this thing that we all look forward to and we get to hang out and we get to see each other. And that's one of the reasons that I love annual events, especially like community driven events like this, like Gateway Fate. And I love stories about them. I have the biggest smile on my face right now because I just think that it is a great sign of what a healthy cooperative community looks like.
Absolutely. And that was truly what it was about for us, was the community and doing something because all of us were feeling it in that moment of like, this is something we've never experienced before, right? And so there was a lot of uncertainty during the first year and a lot going on. I mean, if you think back to when COVID happened, that summer was just really odd. And people were so disappointed about all of these big plans that they had getting canceled. And we wanted to do something where like we don't want it to spend any money. So everybody that volunteers, they're legitimately volunteering. Like nobody's getting paid for this. Nobody's making buco gil out of it. We do ask for donations, but it's only to build the venues so that we've got these magnificent venues for when people come in, they're able to experience this immersion. And so that the people that are spending their time and bringing their venues to us are able to like feel like they're at a home away from home, that they're able to immerse themselves into what it is that they do. So we're very, very intentional about all of that.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my experience and the way the website's organized, it seems to me as though Mogstock isn't a typical 3-day event, kind of like FanFest, in the form of this will happen from like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. It feels more like, hey, for 3 days, if you come here, there will be things going on, and it doesn't matter if that's at like 9 a.m. or 11 p.m. It really seems like a continual 3-day festival. Would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely accurate. Basically, we laugh about it. Ward 22 is always like, oh, it's Mogstock time again. We get invaded by all these players and they're out role playing. And like before all the bands begin, there's bands that are like doing pop up, barding, people running pop up events where they're like before the actual like time, like the scheduled events start earlier in the day, like they're all just taking advantage of it. And we actually like have in rooms where people can rent it out. Like if they're from a different server, it's like we're like and that's actually one of the things that I would say is that if you're planning to come to Modstock, get on the Mateus early because on that weekend we definitely have server lag. So go park yourself in advance and don't expect the that the Aetherites are going to behave for you if you decide like, oh, I'm just going to drop in. They might, but it's definitely worth going and like kind of just immersing yourself in the idea of I'm going to go and I'm going to be there. Like I'm staying there for the weekend. And there's all sorts of places where you can, if you wanted to, like if you're a big role player, you can rent a room that is like an in room and it's yours for the weekend. That kind of thing. It's we really have tried to hit on all of the possibilities as far as that goes.
And that's one of the things that I really respect about Mogstock, and I want you to hopefully relay that to the rest of the staff, is the way you guys have worked to make it feel as much as possible like an actual real life 3-day. I don't even want to say music event anymore because I feel like it's so much more than that. Just astounds me. I
A
think it's
festival.
so cool. Yes, a festival. That would be a better way to put it.
That's it for sure. That's what we want. Like if we're hitting that high note, that is precisely what we want and precisely what we want those that come and visit and are part of it to get out of it.
So, what is attendance like at Mogstock? It sounds like obviously the housing Ward 22 gets pretty full, which makes sense for an event like this. But do you have people from like Europe and Asia that drop in? I mean, what is the atmosphere like at this?
Well, we do ask, and we kind of put reminders out there that it is also a role play event. So we ask that people, if they're going to be out of character, that they party up and do their chatter that's out of character in their party or in DMs so that the immersive elements are present. You know, like that we ask people to kind of avoid shouts unless it's a kind of an icy one-off thing. And we try not to shout the heck out of the area. You know, the shouts come and it's basically festival announcements. So if you imagine yourself going into this ward, what you're going to experience is that you're going to be hearing shouts, but they're all in character of like, hey, at stage A, we've got so and so playing at this time, and you know, come watch this. Or then we've got Zyla and Zero that are handling all of the prizes that we give out. Like, you know, okay, if you want to get signed up for this, you know, go visit this venue and have some lunch, you know, have some Bondi Patchy or go have a cup of tea at the Shroud Rose Tea House or go get an ice cream cone at Camp Cloud Top. And we've got a real variety of these things. And then we've got the after hours too, which is for those, you know, we understand that people are coming from all different time zones. So we try to have a little bit of something everywhere. And we've got kind of our more, I'm not going to say like adult venues because it's not like we're having like brothels like all over the place or anything like that. What we've got instead is like kind of cheeky games that we'll play. Like we did the Mogstock Matchup, which was like a dating game late at night. And then we did a cabaret show uh, after hours one of the nights. And then the very last night is always like this Mogstock after hours ball, I guess, where you go and it's more just like everybody going and dancing and kind of just like settling into the vibe. Like this was such a great weekend, and people are always like, I don't want it to stop, and it's just such a good vibe. Like everybody, even the festival organizers who are so harried and so like stressed, like we get caught up in it too. Like it's just I can't really explain it. All I can say is that it's magical.
I mean, I think that especially as someone who has to spend all this time organizing it, I think the fact that you, after 6 years, can still feel that way means that it is something really special because you're not looking at it as like a burden or something that, oh, it's Mogstock time again and this is what people expect of us. From what I've gathered from talking with you, not just during this interview, but outside of the interview, it sounds like you and the rest of the staff look forward to Mogstock just as much or possibly more than the attendees do.
We absolutely do. I mean, I know that we all do not look forward to Mogstock planning and the little, you know, bumps and bruises that happen along the way. And there are times where we are at each other's throats, but at the end of the day, the commitment comes from all of us, like knowing deeply that what we're doing is this fun and meaningful thing that has made a difference to a lot of people. And it's gotten people, there are countless times where people have come up to us and said, hey, I got barding because of this. Like I taught myself to make an ensemble group, or I got into role play because of this, or, you know, like if what we've done is like spread any kind of creativity or inspiration, which it seems like we have, you know, like I think that not everybody, you know, like is going to have the same experience, but there are definitely people that truly, truly feel like it's had an impact on their experience in Final Fantasy, and that to me is just kind of like mind blowing.
I want to take a minute and because you guys work so hard, let's talk about the staff for Mogstock. Now, obviously, running a 3-day long festival cannot be easy. I have no doubts that it is a multi-level, multi-person gathering, let's say. Definitely a lot. Tell me about your staff. Like, who all's involved with this? Is there anyone you want to shout out? Tell me about the organizers. Obviously, aside from yourself, involved in bringing this to the community.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So the founders, of course, and I've kind of mentioned and talked about them a little bit, would be myself and Ledwin, Clade, um, Bayen, and Tromad. And Tromad is no longer with the festival, but I'm sure that we'll see Tromad out there for part of the event. Tromad always shows up. Tromad is super busy. But Clade runs the marketing aspect, and Bayen helps with like getting the individual bards and kind of bringing in the new bards into the festival. And myself and Ledwin took on like the website and kind of like that back end, and then we also brought on newer staff, and that would be Ford, who like has helped with getting a lot of like different venues that do a lot of barding shows at them. And he also does the Balafel, which is crazy fun. You like Balafel is where you get to kick Lalafels into a goal with water. Like we do this Blue Mage thing. It is so cool. And Ford also runs the Mogstock parade that has happened on most years. It's kind of a lead up to Mogstock. And then there is Zyla and Zero, who are these amazing volunteers that we had from like year one that kept with us. And 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we were like, hey, you guys are invaluable. Everything that you do is just amazing. And they are now lead organizers. And then, of course, you can't forget Doc, who is Doc Holiday, who has his own little saloon venue, and he runs a lot of little events with bards too. And he has gotten involved as an organizer, and in the past we've had other organizers as well, but I would say that like this year that's our crew, and that's who we've got all sorts of other volunteers as well. Like I they're almost too many to be named, but like every single person that involves themselves, we've got photographers, we've got artists, we've got streamers, we've got venues, and of course we have got the most amazing bards every year. Like, and that was the really big, I think, boon for us for getting people to see Modstock, was that the very first year we had the Songbirds and Moogle Troop as our big feature acts, and every year after that, like now we've got different feature barding ensembles that go, and they are the main acts each night, the headliners. So
And I want to go ahead and mention that my guest from the previous interview, Clockwork Angels, will also be in attendance.
yes, they are amazing. And if you've never seen the macro dances that they do, this is your chance. And oh my goodness, the amount of work and creativity that the macro dancers put into it all is just fabulous. So, you know what I mean? And yeah, like I there are so many different little things. Like I am almost positive that after this interview, I'm going to go back and be like, why didn't I forgot to mention this? But that's the beauty of it, is that um, people are like, well, would this fit in? And we're like, heck yeah, bring it on. Like, let's actually embrace whatever creative things people are doing and try to get it out there to the community, because this actually is how people get involved in that sort of thing. And they get excited about it. And then we get more of it because they're inspired, right?
And I want to take a minute and be a good podcast host. For those of you that did listen to my Clockwork Angels interview, and you're like, I really want to see them sometime, but haven't yet. And for those of you that are listening to this interview and going, Mogstock sounds really cool, maybe I'll check it out. Consider this: you could get both of those things accomplished at once. Just come to Mogstock this year.
Absolutely. Come to Mogstock. Come up to me. I'm Braely Fiala. Mogstock. I'm a big, tall, dopey, blonde Viren character. I probably shouldn't like. She's a big Moko head, so for her, this is like her jam. Like she just runs around like, oh yeah, I'm a little bit, like loopy, but at the same time, hey.
So then you, on top of sort of coordinating and making sure everything's going okay, do you also jump into the role play a lot at Mogstock then?
Oh, I am fully immersed and in character. Like you, like the only time I'm out of character is like you're in my DMs or I might like say something in brackets, but like I am fully there in character the whole time, like running around and role playing my frazzled feelings,
So tell me about coordinating something like this. Like, how long before Mogstock does preparation for an event like this begin? Is it pretty much immediately after the last one, or a few months out, or what is your schedule as an organizer looking like leading up to Mogstock?
The best of intentions always. I guess I would say like we at the end of Mog's Talk, we usually do a breakdown. We talk about things that went really well. We talk about the things that maybe didn't go so well. And we try to make sure that if there are people that are hurt or have hurt feelings because they weren't featured in this way or that, that we touch base with them and that we try to, resolve any kind of issues that way. The people that are super excited to get them, like in touch with the community so that they can feel that inspiration, move into something bigger, to like fix any of like the little or to write, just simply write down like, oh, okay, like, well, we had this idea that this would work next year. Let's try to revisit that when we open up planning. And planning usually, so we start talking about planning, like when are we gonna sit down and get all of this organized? We start that in March, usually late March, like right around. I told you that I'm a teacher, so like for me, I've always asked that, like, like after spring break is ideal for me. Like that's when I know that it's kind of all right. Now is where we sit down and we start doing this. And I know that Clade is always working like throughout the year, making contacts with people that are bands, like getting them excited to sign up and whatnot. But I think that's true for all of us. And again, like with Zyla and Zero, like they are the people that have handled our. They got involved initially by doing the raffles and the giveaways for us, and leading up the shouts and kind of the on the boots on the ground, as it were, for festival staff, and their roles have expanded within it, and invaluable, right? And Ledwin is my absolute rock, like 10+ year role play partner, and has just always been like filled with like really good pragmatic ideas. So we all have a little bit of something that we offer, and it's all different, and it all kind of works together. And when it's not working together, we pause, we talk about like always what's best for the festival. Like how do we make sure that the festival is at the forefront of all of our priorities, rather than kind of individual egos. And I think that that's been kind of the key to success. Even when we've stumbled, that is still a factor, and that's kind of our focus moving forward.
It shows that there's a lot of cohesion in the staff running the event, and I think that that's vital for keeping an event running long term.
Well, yeah, and the fact that like, we are able to get through hard times. I think that that's like one of the big things is that all of our passion for the festival itself allows us to, like I said, make that the priority where even when we're really struggling with in a moment, because there are moments like whenever you're planning things with a group of like different people, you're going to have different opinions on things. You're going to have different ways of looking at things. And at the end of the day, I think that all of us trust, though, that we are 100% about the success of what we know is a beloved festival.
Sorry, I'm just taking a minute thinking about that. I mean, I just this is the type of thing that you look at and you go, this is a great example of what the player base, what the community could and should be.
Well, thank you so very, very much for saying that. Um, I think that that's genuinely our hope. I know it's my hope that everybody walks away going like, this is neat. This is really something special. And yeah, like I think that that is, it would be fair to say that I could speak for all of our organizers that at the end of the day, we want everybody who walks away from it to feel really good about having spent their time participating in it.
And as you're my guest today, I want to take a minute and let's bring this down to a more personal level. Beyond just, hey, you're part of the Mogstock team, you're part of the founding of the event. What does this event mean to you on a personal level? And in a broader sense, what does the 14 community mean to you and your team that you guys would put this on every year for them?
So I think for me on a personal level, at first it started out just as an enthusiastic challenge. I'm we kind of like delved into that a little bit earlier, but I'm a passion project person and obviously I like alliteration too. But anyways, I really felt like let's try this. Let's see how far we can go with this. So it's always been like the challenge of it for me and plus the fun of it. For me it's giving the I would be lying if I didn't say that we've got two communities in specific. The performance community, the dancers and the bards and the DJs and whatnot. Though this year we don't have as many DJs because the DJs really had a hard time because they do so many sets. We're kind of changing that up a little bit, but that's okay. It'll still be great. Don't worry. But they were having a hard time last year with the server stuff. We had a lot of DJs that couldn't get there because they were doing one set over on this world, and then it was just too much congestion, so they couldn't get onto our world. So we had to figure that one out. Usually with the bards, we tell all of the bards like to be there in advance, and they are. But anyways, I digress. What does it mean to me? It's just a really cool thing that I get to be a part of, right? And that I get to bring to my role play community. That um, I get to provide a unique experience that is almost like a DM'd event that is no DM other than just the fact that it's there for the role play community in particular, but it also brings this role play community face to face with all of these performers and being able to interact with it as characters of Eorzea, right? That their characters are experiencing this. Their characters are like, I'm gonna put on a flower crown and watch this bard from Limsa performing, this music, and it's amazing. Or yeah, I mean, there's just so much. I wish that I could articulate it or distill it into like a big sentence that makes sense. But really, I probably what you can hear from me is that I've just got a lot of I don't know, like I'm very very fond and passionate about um the way that it's evolved.
I feel that I mean, first off, I'm very glad to hear how passionate you are about it, and I feel like that is something that has been very well conveyed through this interview. I mean, just hearing not only about your passion, but the passion that the entire team seems to have for doing this event, I think is wonderful. But I feel like I wouldn't be doing my job as a podcast host and interviewer if I didn't ask. So, I'm very heavy into roleplay. You're very heavy into roleplay. But obviously, not everyone listening to this may be as enthusiastic about roleplay as the two of us. So, on their behalf, let me ask you this. If they don't want to roleplay or they just don't roleplay in general, is it still okay for them to come and attend?
Oh, they're not just okay, they're welcome to come. It's just all we ask is just don't like kind of spam the role play channels with a lot of like, if you're going to just be having a conversation, write the full sentence of it, like don't bring a lot of fourth wall is really the big ask. And that's already like, on the website is just, kind of be mindful of it that there's role play happening. But otherwise go and dance and jam and enjoy the music and have fun with the bards, go get yourself some art, you know, go and look at the designs, like just whatever it is that makes their hearts sing and would pull them to such a festival, come enjoy it. It really, it's hard to like, it's so funny because people are like, oh, I'm not a role player, but they go in and they're like, oh, hello. And that's enough, right? Like all they need to do is say hello. It's not like they're going to be expected to do multi-para role play. It's just as simple as saying hello and enjoying what it is that we offer. And certainly if you like barding, like I have not emphasized enough, but it's because it's like baked right into it. Like obviously it's a music festival. So there's bards galore. If you've got any kind of like you are gonna see every kind of barding music you could possibly imagine if you come to Mogstock. Ensembles that do just kind of mind-blowing stuff. It is truly remarkable. And also it's you're gonna get to see single bard artists that don't get a lot of the spotlight. We do spotlight, like the single bards. And another thing with each of the venues, we place bard groups and bards in the venues themselves. So each of the venues has like live music when you go in,
Plus the pop ups.
plus the pop-ups. Like that's the funny thing is that those who haven't played before, like, we're going to bring our bard band in because we've got one too, because they just heard of it, right? And all of a sudden the next thing you know, that particular pop-up will end up being a headliner 2 years later. It's happened, right?
And I think that's one of those organic things that makes it feel even more like a real world festival is that transition from like, hey, 2 years ago, we just happened to be here and played a song to, hey, look, I'm on a stage now.
Yeah, well, and that's actually one of our headliners last year was somebody that I had met through role play, and they were just doing single barding at the time, and I was like, "You are so amazing!" Like, where they had it was the first time that I'd ever heard anybody bard the song Jolene by Dolly Parton, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, can I have that?" Like, and they were like, "Well, I made this for myself." I'm like, "You what?" And it turned out that they were a musician in real life, and they were making their own midis, and I was like, "You have got to play at Mogstock." And they were like, I don't know if I'm ready for that." But they did. They came and they played as a single act. And then all of a sudden they were like, they got into making their own ensemble and they were one of our headliners last year.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's all that connection, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not just the way that I feel like Mogstock helps bring the community together. It's the steady evolution over time, which I think that's the last question I want to ask is from year 1 to year 6, in what ways has Mogstock evolved over time? Like, how would you say it's changed?
It's tried new things. It's some of the things have worked, some of the things haven't, and people are always willing to at least give it a try, right? But they all have kind of like faith that we're always just trying to make this, connective place where people are going to go and they're going to have fun for a weekend, and they're maybe going to meet new people. Like in my FC, one of the members met the character that they were going to end up getting married to this past year at Mogstock last year, right? Like there's so many big connections that happen, and you're going to meet new friends, and you're going to meet friends that, where people are having fun, and where if you're having kind of a lull in the game where you can just kick back and enjoy, like it's just so much fun.
And something that comes to mind for me is, on top of that, I suppose my first thought when looking at when Mogstock was, will this be in conflict with EU FanFest? But as I've thought about it throughout this interview, I'm like, but maybe that is the best timing, because people who won't be able to attend EU FanFest, especially a lot of the North American players, they can watch the live letter, they can watch the Evercold info, they can get really excited about the game, and now they have this 3-day festival that they can come and they can use that energy. They can have a place to talk with new friends and very much indulge and dive into and enjoy that Final Fantasy 14 hype.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The hype is real at Mogstock. And, we've got the most amazing venues that contribute. Can I tell you the venues that are going to be present with us this year? Or
If you have some venues that you would like to shout out, by all means.
absolutely. So Bondi Paxi is like one of the flagship venues that has been with us forever and ever. We've got Puku's Pizza, who was also, I want to say, year two. And then we have got Bards and Brews, which also has bards that will be playing in the festival itself. And we have got the Shroud Rose Tea House, which is like, they are the nicest people you could ever imagine. And we have got Vintage, which is a high class, like they do like a blues club, and they also run another amazing venue called Risque, which is a little more on the adult side, but they were here with us last year, and this year they're bringing their vintage, like kind of cigar club blues, more um, musicy kind of tongue-in-cheek wink, you know, fun to the after hours part of our festival, um and we have got a new one called Soda Pop, which is going to be there. They do like a pop shop, and then we've got our venue that's actually, we only open it for Mogstock, which is run by my FC, called Camp Cloud Top. And it's an ice cream parlor, and people go in every year and they're like, "Oh, it's Camp Cloud Top ice cream, like we're gonna go get an ice cream cone," and everybody loves to go take screenshots, and it is super cute. And then we have got the Elysian Spring Spa, which is our main venue that we run, and we do a lot of the after hours stuff in that, and a lot of people will go and just chill. Like it's a spa that's right up the hill, and you'll see like the designs. I take a lot of time and pour my heart into making sure, that one is one of my personal responsibilities, is making sure that all of the housing is designed. And so trust me when I say I work very hard making certain that um, these venues truly shine in that context.
It sounds like it genuinely sounds like you put in a ton of effort, and And I'm glad to hear it, and I look forward to it.
Well, yeah, and this is the other reason you should go. We're giving away like I want to say like 50 million gil a night in raffles, and all you got to do is show up. It's not like a buy-in. You're not like buying into the raffles. You're just being there, like being present and getting counted as among our festival goers. So every night you have a chance to win like 5 million gil a pop, I believe is what it is. So it's pretty special. And also swag, like the flower wreaths and like all sorts of other fun little swag that we, like minions and stuff like that. But it's fun. Like it's just I I can't explain it. All I can say is go, come and be with us, give it a try, and if you don't like it, you can go, right? But I don't think you will. I think you're gonna go and you're gonna get stuck there, and you're gonna be like, okay, what's happening tomorrow? And there will also be a fashion contest this year. There is every year. So like last year, I want to say it was cottagecore and something else. I can't remember what the other one was, but I was there as a judge for the cottagecore. It was so cute. Zyla did that, and she did an amazing job of putting it together. And we had so many outfits that I was like, that is so creative. I never would have thought to put those things together.
And in my mind, one of the other big benefits about this festival is there are a lot of people who work odd hours that I hear talk about usually being sort of left out of events, things like free company events, but also bigger server events because they're like, well, I have odd hours. I'm working, I'm sleeping, and I can't get into these events when everyone else can. But then you have something like this that seems perfect even for people who have off hours.
Oh, absolutely. It's just going. It's just there's people around the entire weekend. Go park yourself in Ward 22, the Lavender Beds of Mateus. It's in the subdivision, so it's important that people know it's in the subdivision, not in the main division. And the bards play in the Amethyst Shallows, and the venues are up in the housing area, and we have a map for it. Right now, I would say, and I apologize for this for anybody that's listening, we are working to update the card, and it's just we've got so many things that we're doing. So bear with us. It will all be there by festival weekend, and go and, or not go, come and have an amazing time because we're waiting for you. We're ready.
I can't think of a better way to end this interview than that.
Oh,
So we've talked a lot about Mogstock, and I think it's safe to say we're both pretty hyped for it, and hopefully my dear listener is hyped as well. But now
absolutely.
that we're reaching the end of the interview, this is the part where I flip the script a little. You've been kind enough to spend the afternoon with me answering my questions, and I really appreciate that. So now's the part where I ask if you have any questions for me.
So my first question is can I count on seeing you at Mogstock and us getting a chance to role play a little bit?
I don't know when I'll be there. It really, my weekend schedules are a bit hectic, but I definitely plan to attend, and I will DM you on Discord when I'm there. And we will
Awesome.
see. Hopefully, our schedules will sync up. If we're both free, I would love to roleplay with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That'd be really cool. The other thing that I would ask you is what is your favorite type of interview to do? You've gotten to do all sorts of interviews, but what sorts of interviews are your favorite type to
Oh, that's a good question. Ooh, I'm gonna need a minute to think about that.
do? Sorry.
No, no, it's fine. That's a lot to think about. 4 seasons of well, three and like two so far. um, my favorite type of interview. Hmm. I don't know if I would particularly say I have a favorite type of interview, but I will say that there is something, there's a particular part of my interviews that is my favorite part. And that is when you, as the guest, get really, really hyped and really excited for what I have you on to talk about, and you can hear it. You can hear the higher pitch. You can hear the slightly quicker talking. You hear the giddy laughter that is going on between sentences. It's when the person I have on really gets as hyped about our subject as I feel talking to them about it. And I feel that that's the moment that not only are they most involved in the interview, but as the host, I'm most captivated by my guest at that point. And I know from feedback that that's also when my listeners are most engaged. And I feel like it's at that moment that collectively we are sort of together in the moment. We're in that zone, and my guest, myself, and my listener can all be like, yeah, this is why we're here.
Right?
And just that state of like, we are in this interview, we are locked in, and we are at like maximum excitement, and
That's
it is the
awesome.
greatest feeling.
I love that answer. I love, and you didn't, I love how you kind of shifted it, like from where I went with it into there's a certain point in the interview that I really love, which is like way more informative. Like that's super cool. And it's really obvious. And I admit, like I said, I've seen some of the coffee and carbuncles before, and I didn't even really like put two and two together, um, just because I've been super busy this year myself. Until like I went and I was like, oh, I know this website. I've been here before. Your YouTube channel, and so like that for me, I had seen like I've watched a couple of your videos on different things, so it was like really curious to me. Like, is it the festival stuff? Is it like the content stuff, like what makes your heart sing, but clearly it's the interview itself, which is really neat.
100%. I think that through doing Coffee and Carbuncles, I've gotten to speak with all different types of people, from like solo content creators to representatives of big events such as yourself, to individual members representing collective theater troupes, um, just all kinds of different people on all types of different scale. But the commonality there is that it's all stuff that is uniquely part of the 14 community, and different aspects of the community that I hope, as the host, I genuinely hope helps to show that it doesn't matter like how obscure your interest is, how often you play, how casual or hardcore of a player you are. There is this overall umbrella called the 14 community, and we're all under it. And we're all, I don't want to say in this together, because I feel like that almost sounds too cliche. But like, for instance, you look at Mogstock, for example, where we can say that Mogstock is an event in and of itself, and it is, but also that event is then composed of bards, macro dancers, our peers, venue owners, and Mogstock, while its own thing, also incorporates different branches, different parts of the community, and brings them together. And that's also what I hope that this podcast has done a good job of doing, because I think it is important to keep in mind, as I said, that regardless of where our interests lie or how much we may be interacting with the game, we are still at the end of the day part of the same community. And that sense of community is important.
Yeah, it's a great big world out there. And that was kind of like, we kind of touched on it at the beginning of the interview, that like what brought me into the game was just that there was so much for so many different people, that the moment that you finish experiencing one thing, there's something new to experience. And um, I think that the creators out there that kind of see that, like, that's where people feel buy into it, that they're like, yes, like you see me, you see that there's this interest, and we can coexist and celebrate each other. And I do love that about it all, that it's got that kind of vibe to it. I'm super curious how you heard of Mogstock, how you got involved.
This is going to sound like a cop out. I don't remember.
It just kind
I
of like
can tell
over
you.
time.
I can tell you that I heard about it 3 years ago. I do. I remember that like 3 years ago is when Mogstock popped up on my radar. I was informed about it, and I cannot begin to tell you how. I don't know if it was a social media post. I
Probably
don't
an
know if it was a
interview.
friend.
Maybe it was an interview, like somebody that just happened to be a participant in Mogstock, like just popped in and you were like, oh, what's that?
I genuinely have no idea, but I am glad that I did hear about it. I'll say that much.
I'm super glad that you reached out. I couldn't be happier to be here today, Nobu.
Something that I hope both Mogstock and Coffee and Carbuncles highlights, and to go back to what I was saying earlier, is I feel like a lot of times we tend to try and define ourselves a bit too much. Like I've seen people in the community go, "Well, I'm an RPer, well, I'm an in-game raider, well, I'm a bard." And it's like, right, but also I've seen people who literally bard roleplay and in-game raid pretty much like simultaneously, so
A
I
triple
I
threat.
feel like, yeah, exactly. I think that
I'm a double
maybe
threat. I don't raid. You don't want me to raid with you. I can do a
I
little
tell
bit of
people the
content,
same
but
thing.
you'd be carrying my butt all the way through. Like, what? Oh, no, she's dead again? What? How'd that happen?
We will ground tank together.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's also one of the reasons that festivals like this are important, because the more we define ourselves, yes, it's helpful for others, but at the same time, I think we need to be conscious of boxing ourselves in too much and just
Yes,
be like,
I agree.
hey, I just play 14 and I enjoy it.
Yeah, be open to all the new experiences. I think that I'm a firm believer in experiencing the wonders that the world has to offer, be it in real life or in game. And in game, we certainly have a lot of wonders that are available to us. So be open to it.
Absolutely. And you and I will go and experience Mogstock 2026 next weekend. And hopefully, my dear listener,
Um, you know, I'm going to give a shout out to your podcast because it's super cool. I've heard of it before and I've listened to it a few times, and now I definitely like I remember when you and I first started talking, you showed me the Clockwork Angels singing because I knew that. I was like, oh my goodness, it's Clockwork Angels. And then I went back through your history and was like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. I've seen this before. So listen to Nobu. And thank you to all of the bards, to the venues, to the participants of Mogstock. Come out, have a good time, role play your hearts out, sing your hearts out, dance your hearts out, just have fun. And thank you to everybody in the past that has contributed to the success of Mogstock. Thank you to those that aren't getting to participate this year. We hope to see you back next year. If you can't be here this year, Thank you to the organizers for all of the hard work and effort. Thank you to all of our FC mates who deal with us being such pains in the butt during this time. You know, we see you, we appreciate you, we value you. All of this is like we couldn't do all of this without all of you. So, yeah, thanks. I guess I think that's the messages. Thank you.
All right. Well, with that said, Braely, thank you for your time today. And obviously, you and I are going to be talking quite a bit over the next week as Mogstock approaches, but interview-wise, interview-wise, I think that this is where we will call it a day. So, take care.
Sounds great. Take care, Nobu.
Just a quick note before we go. I know EU FanFest is next weekend. Unfortunately, I'm not able to attend this year. However, there will be exactly 100 Coffee and Carbuncles stickers floating around FanFest. So please be on the lookout for those, or message me between now and let's say Friday, July 24th, if you'd like a sticker reserved for you. Alright, now here's the outro. I hope that listening to Braely got you excited for Mogstock. The entire Mogstock team is so passionate about this event, and it really shows. Between all the different performers and venues they have to keep in touch with, to their ability to line everything up and handle disputes, whether it be between performers or schedules, they really impress me. And I sincerely think that if you attend next weekend, you'll be impressed as well. Also, if you can't attend, it happens midsummer every year, so there will be other opportunities in the future, don't worry. Well, I feel I've kept you long enough. Those snacks are already gone. I hope the rest of your day goes well, and just remember, whenever you're exhausted from adventuring or need a place to relax while doing other work, you can always come back. So with that being said, I'll see you next time, dear friend, with a warm drink and wonderful guests. Take care.